Today on Cooking with Gerry, we're making waffles. I am going to plug the waffle iron in so that it can heat up before I put the batter. And we're going to get started. Here I have 2 eggs, and I'm just going to mix them a little bit. 2 eggs, and then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of virgin coconut oil. It's kind of solid, a little bit chilly this morning. Get my spatula. That's 1. And 2. And half a teaspoon of pink salt. And let's mix that up a little bit. I'm going to try and warm up the coconut oil. And now for the other ingredients. I'm going to use my strainer. So here is sacha inchi powder, very similar to almond flour. It's a nut, similar properties. Flavor, consistency, it's kind of a cross between a walnut and almond, Brazil nut. So that was 2 tablespoons. Here I have pure cocoa powder, and I'm going to add, don't fall, I'm going to add about a teaspoon. Yeah. I'm not adding any sugar. So if I put too much cocoa, they would be too strong of the bitterness coming from the cocoa. Here I have coca powder. Lots of great properties. I'm going to put 1 tablespoon, if I can get my spoon inside the bag. They put 2 bags to kind of maintain the freshness. It's green, so the batter, it'll be a green pancake. And here is alfalfa powder. This one is also green. Also has 2 bags packed inside of it. A little bit difficult to get the spoon in sometimes. There we go. Come on. Yup. And here is baking powder, baking soda. I'm going to put about 1 teaspoon. And here is white flour. No, this is wheat flour. I am not going to put it through the strainer because it has little bits of bran, the fiber, that don't go through the strainer. So I'm going to put 3 tablespoons of white wheat flour. I think it's important to have the white flour in this situation so that it stays together well and it's easier to lift it out. If I don't put the wheat flour, it's going to be too fragile of a batter. If you're doing it in the oven, you don't need to put the wheat flour. There are clumps of the baking soda, and there are, I'm guessing, remnants of shell from the cocoa, maybe the sacha inchi. So that's why I like to use the strainer, and I just throw that in the garbage. And then the whole wheat flour, 3 tablespoons, and a little bit of water. I won't need all of it, I don't think. You don't want too much water. So that was about half the quantity. Take one of my spoons. I'll take the one that had the egg. And I'm just going to mix it. And I'm going to add, I have 2 walnuts, 5 cashews, and 10 pistachios that I washed and I chopped up into smaller pieces. I think it's important to chop up the nuts in smaller pieces so that they fit through into the grooves without being a big solid piece. I don't recommend using any kind of fruit or vegetable because the sugars in those foods will caramelize and they tend to stick to the Teflon coating. So I don't use those when I make waffles, but for sure if you're putting this in the oven, you can add lots of other ingredients. So we're ready. Double checking, yeah, that was easy. So here in this plate, I just have a combination of sunflower seed oil and virgin olive oil, and I have this brush. I am just going to, it's sizzling, can you hear it? I am going to coat the Teflon surface with this oil combination. This is the first waffle, and I find that with the first waffle it sticks a lot more than the next waffles, so I usually put a little bit more oil on the first one. And I haven't used this waffle iron in about 4 months, so I had to wash a bit of the mold that had built up with this heat and humidity. So I really hope that this waffle comes out nice and easy. And I'm only making enough batter for one because I don't want to have extra. But please make extra and put them in the freezer. This is much healthier than any kind of store-bought waffle, especially from the freezer section. I'm just going to show you the batter. You can see it's green from the coca powder and the alfalfa powder. And I'm going to put the batter into the waffle iron. It's important not to put too much because then it spills over the edge and makes it difficult to clean. This looks like the perfect amount. Lucky. So with my spatula, I am going to clean all the residual that's stuck on the bowl. Is that going to be too much? I don't think so. And I'm going to close the lid, and it usually takes about 15 minutes. It depends on the strength of your waffle iron. Many of them are usually about 750 watts. Sometimes if you get the more expensive one, it'll be 1200 watts. There might be some at 1500. This one I think is 800. It's important not to touch the Teflon with anything metal so you don't risk scratching the surface. And with this kind of batter, since there's other stuff besides just the regular wheat flour, I like to make it cook a little bit longer just to make sure that the batter is firm before I lift it up. So there we go. Yeah, that's a problem with this one. The latch. The latch isn't so good, and that thing is really hot. So I know I'm going to put my glove that I use for the grill so I don't burn myself. And I have a wooden little spoon. Let's try this again. Oh. Gotta clean this part off, otherwise it's gonna get baked on, and that would be a problem for the cleaning. So there's grooves right here, and get the latch. Come on, work this time. There we go. Sorry about that. Depends on the quality of the product. I've used this waffle iron a lot. And what you can do is those first 30 seconds you will see if there's too much batter and it overflows. You'll see as it spills out right here. This one has an automatic latch release. Once the waffle rises, it releases the latch to give the waffle more room to expand. I forgot the nuts. What can we do? You know what? We can't do anything. I am going to put them on top. Instead of using any kind of syrup or sugary liquid, I am going to use the bean soup that I made this morning. And since I forgot to put them in the batter, which might be a good thing in the end because they won't be cooked, they'll maintain their nutritional properties. Because if whenever you cook something you diminish the value of that food product. So it's a good thing in the end, but I would have the latch released. So it's rising and I can see that it's not too much, it's not overflowing. So I'm going to clean up and we'll come back in about 10 minutes when it's just about ready. It's been about 20 minutes. I let it go a little bit longer because since the latch came off that one time, there's a possibility the latch will come off again, and I wanted it to be more cooked just to make it easier to remove that grill that didn't stay attached to the lid. And I'm going to unplug it because we don't need the heat anymore. So hopefully it stays attached. And also be careful with this latch. I've seen some other waffle irons, if this latch is not treated with care, I'll use that word, it can break off. So be careful not to use too much force with the latch. So I'm going to lift it up. And sometimes it sticks, so I use my wooden spatula to pry it open instead of using the latch. And also the housing of the waffle iron is hot. So there it is, and the top latch didn't stick, but the waffle did. As I said with that first waffle, I find it always wants to stick. And so, make sure you're using wood and not metal. You just have to pry it open. Which one would be better? I think this one. Just have to pry it to release it. It's a solid batter. Some bits are breaking off, and then there's the latch that released. So my glove, I am going to lift the whole thing and put it on this grill, and now I have an easier time to try and remove the waffle. It's stuck pretty good. So, you don't need to watch me struggle with the waffle. I am going to turn the video taping off, and we'll come back for one last segment where I show you how I'm going to eat it. So excuse the obstacle, but that's the way life goes sometimes. We'll be back in 3 seconds. Got my plate all ready, but first let me explain something I think is important. The Teflon pan, the one I have, luckily I can remove that plate. It's one of those 4-in-1 waffle makers. There are 3 other different plates. One is kind of a deep dish, and the other 2 are for muffins, which are round, and brownies or whatever else kind of batter, because they're square. It's important that you clean it properly, but try to avoid using the scouring, the abrasive side. I just use this side. It's much softer, because if you use the abrasive side, you're risking to scratch that Teflon surface. So I washed it as best as I could with this, and it came off. But if there's any kind of residual stuck on the plate, the griddle plate, I have it soaking, I don't know if you can see, in a big saucepan just with a bit of water, and I'll let it soak for an hour or 2, and then I'll clean it again. I don't recommend they go in the dishwasher. And the waffle iron itself, I have it on an angle on that surface, just to allow gravity to pull any kind of water, moisture that's underneath the heating coil. And sometimes if you put too much oil when you're using the pastry brush, or you could use a strong paper towel, sometimes that oil gets inside. So with it on the angle, I'm hoping everything will drip out. So that's the care of the machine, and I also gave it a wipe on the outside. This kind of waffle, it can be any meal. I'll show you what I have. This is my lunch, and it's a very balanced, healthy, nutritious meal. I don't recommend eating the store-bought waffles because there's a lot of processed ingredients, which is going to quickly turn into sugar when you put it in your stomach, especially if you're putting any kind of liquid sugar, maple syrup or pancake syrup, table syrup. Honey might be the best liquid sugar, because honey can be healthy if it's used as medicine. Just be careful with the honey, because many times there are impurities added, so the company who makes and sells those jars or containers of honey, so they can maximize their profit. But this, let me show you. I had a few bits of it while I was removing it, and it's really tasty. It's a brownish color, and here I have a half an avocado that I sliced, and here's a bean soup I made earlier, and I just put on top those nuts that I had originally planned to put in the batter, which, like I say, now they're going to be healthier because they're not cooked. And I put 1 pinch of pink salt, and I used olive oil to put on top instead of any kind of sugar or syrup. And here I have the other 2 pieces covered, because I'm on an outdoor kitchen and there are numerous flying insects, and there was an invasion of these big black ants in that corner. I used vinegar to try and mask the scent that they may have left and whatever was attracting them to that corner. It's important also to let it have enough air while it's cooling. If you put it on a flat surface, the heat will produce condensation, moisture on the bottom. Also important, if you make extra, to not put it in the freezer until it's cooled. If you have to, I've had to a few times. Put them in some kind of container, but don't close the container. Leave the plastic container or the plastic bag, leave it open until the waffle freezes, and then you can close it. Much healthier than the store-bought stuff. And this is a great lunch. I'm looking forward to it. If you want, you could put it back in the oven under the grill or broil. You put some cheese on it, let the cheese melt. So there's waffles, and a little bit of obstacle, but everything turned out great, and I'm really hungry.